All right, let's jump straight into this explainer where we are going to look right under the hood of human discipline. Today, we're fundamentally reframing your understanding of the will to live. If you've ever, struggled with motivation or just wondered why some people seem to have this endless reservoir of drive while others completely run out of gas, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to map out the literal physical architecture of willpower. And honestly, by the end of this explainer, the way you view your own daily struggles, it might completely change. So let me ask you something right off the bat, and I want you to be completely honest with yourself here. Are you born with willpower? Most of us just naturally operate under the assumption that willpower is this mysterious, invisible force. We kind of think that either you're born with that relentless Goggins energy, that absolute, unyielding drive, or you're hopelessly destined to spend the rest of your life on the couch. We treat it like a fixed personality trait. But is that actually true? Well, this is exactly where our paradigm completely shifts. The myth is that willpower is just a genetic lottery ticket you inherit. But the reality? Modern neuroscience completely flips the script on us. Science has actually discovered that willpower is a physical, measurable structure in your brain. It is quite literally a muscle inside your head that you can build, strengthen, and grow over time. You are not stuck with the willpower you have right now. You can physically change your brain's capacity for discipline. Okay, section 1, let's meet the AMCC. Your brain's very own discipline center. We're talking about the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, or just the AMCC for short. Now, I know, anterior mid-cingulate cortex sounds like an incredibly dry, boring medical term you'd sleep through in a biology class. But out in the world of high performance, this exact tiny spot in your brain is actually known as the cookie monster of discipline. It acts as the literal seat of your willpower and your drive to push forward. When you bust through a mental barrier, this is the engine that's firing. Here is where it gets absolutely wild. When neuroscientists scan people's brains, the contrast is just stark. They find that the AMC is physically smaller in individuals struggling with obesity, but it is significantly larger in elite athletes. And even more fascinating, it is massively enlarged in what researchers call superagers. These are those incredible people who keep their sharp cognitive edge and vitality well into their 80s and 90s. The people who thrive late in life haven't just preserved this structure, they've physically grown it. Moving on to section 2, the friction requirement, or basically doing what you hate. Now, brace yourself, because this is the part a lot of folks find, well, pretty tough to swallow. The AMC only grows when you do things you do not want to do. Let that sink in for a second. It's a huge catch. Growing your willpower isn't just about packing your schedule or being super busy. It is strictly about adding work that creates internal friction. If you want this brain muscle to grow, the resistance absolutely has to be there. Let's make this super concrete. Think of it as the ice bath test. Say you absolutely love your morning ice bath, right? You jump in, hang out in the freezing water for 10 minutes, and hop out feeling like $1,000,000. Guess what? Because you enjoyed it, your AMCC didn't grow at all. Zero growth. Nada. But let's look at the flip side. If you are terrified of that cold water, if every single bone in your body is begging you to stay under those warm covers, and you force yourself to get in anyway, boom, that is when massive AMCC growth happens. The magic is 100% in overcoming the dread. Which brings us to a phrase you've probably heard before: leaning into the suck. When you force yourself to lace up those running shoes when it's pouring rain and your knees are aching, you're doing way more than just burning a few calories. You are firing up what researchers unofficially call the Goggins circuit. You are sending a literal, physical growth signal straight to your brain, commanding the AMC to expand. So what's actually happening under the hood? How does this friction rewire you on a chemical level? Well, whether it's resisting a craving on a diet or grinding out morning cardio when you desperately want to sleep, your brain does something incredible. When you do something you hate, the AMC basically hacks your biology. It triggers a localized release of dopamine right there in the brain as a response to the friction. You are effectively training your brain to find a chemical reward in the effort itself. Over time, you actually start to crave the hard work. All right, section 3, a perishable skill. The classic use it or lose it scenario. Here is the massive scientific bomb the research drops on us. Willpower is a highly perishable skill. Seriously, there are literally no days off when it comes to discipline. You could spend months building up this massive, robust AMC by doing things you hate, but it does not stay enlarged on its own. Think of it like the silly putty effect. Just like silly putty, your AMC has neuroplasticity in both directions. Yes, it grows when you invest in hard things, but It rapidly shrinks the exact moment you stop. And here's the real kicker. It even shrinks the moment you start to enjoy the task. If that terrifying ice bath eventually just becomes a comforting, easy part of your morning routine, it stops acting as a growth stimulus. You have to constantly hunt for new sources of friction. You literally have to renew your lease on willpower every single day. Okay, let's get practical. Section 4, your daily protocol for building the AMCC. Here are your 3 steps to put this into action. Step 1, find just one thing you've been avoiding because it's unpleasant. I'm not talking about anything dangerous, just a stick you don't want to deal with. Step 2, lean right into that friction. Choose the no-go behavior. For example, maybe it's initiating a really awkward conversation you've been dodging. Maybe it's forcing out just one extra rep at the end of a grueling workout. Or actually, it could be as simple as deliberately starting a work task at exactly 12:33, instead of taking the easy way out and waiting for the clock to hit 1. Step 3 is the payoff. Every single time you do this, you physically build a more resilient version of yourself by expanding that AMC. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on today. If you want to stop being a theorist and start being a true practitioner of your own biology, you have to take action. Which dark cupboards of your mind will you start cleaning out today? Where is that friction in your life that you've been actively avoiding? Because hiding inside that friction isn't just discomfort, it is the literal, physical blueprint for your willpower. Get out there and find your friction today.